Hello lovely beaders. Welcome back to my channel. If you saw my video last week, you saw how these type of earrings are made. I wanted to design a pendant using the diagonal stitch that goes nice with the earrings and the ring made last week. My first attempt was in this color. I had to figure it out, bead it, take it apart and redo it before the pendant was complete. I usually don't show you my first attempt because I end up undoing a lot and sometimes the design takes a completely different direction. Once I have the final version and know exactly what the finished piece will look like, that's when I sit down in front of the camera to teach it to you. If you like it and want to bead it yourself, grab your beads and let's get started. String a stopper bead. The triangle shape is made with the diagonal stitch showed in the last video. If you haven't seen my video from last week, I recommend you start with that because in that video I show this stitch more slowly and in more detail. I'll put a link on the screen and the link will be in the description too. String 1 black, 6 red and 3 black delica beads. Pull the beads down on your thread to the stopper bead. Turn back into the first red delica. So skip the first 3 black delicas and go through the red delica. You will have a black picot on top of the red beads. Start a peyote row with red delicas. String 1 delica, skip 1 delica in the base row and go through the next delica. Repeat 2 more times. This is the base row with the corner picot. And now we start to bead one of the side wings. Start a peyote row with red delicas. But stop when you string the 3rd delica. Start the next row with 1 black delica and the rest of the strip will be red. We need to increase the strip to start the diagonal look. So we need to string 2 red and 1 black delica. Pull your beads down your thread and go through the first red delica. With this you will have the extra bead on top of the strip. The new black and the red delica will sit next to each other. Sometimes they want to turn and that is okay, but you will need to use the red delica, the black needs to be on the outside row. String 2 red delicas for this row. Turn with 1 black delica and the rest of the strip will be red. Pay attention to use the red delica from the increase. Make the increase by stringing 2 red and 1 black delica. This was the second increase. You need 3 more rows and 1 increase. You can make more if you want your triangle bigger. I will speed up the video until I have my strip long enough to not bore you with the repetitions. Don't forget that you can slow it down by clicking on the cogwheel icon and selecting the speed you want. I made my extra rows. Turn back in the black delica and string black delicas between the black delicas from this side. This way you will have the black line on the inside of the shape. You need to turn back to have your needle coming out from the end of the base row. And now you can start the other side wing. Start the first row with 3 red delicas. Turn with 1 black delica and the rest of the strip will be red. Make the increase by stringing 2 red and 1 black delica. You just need to repeat these 2 rows until you have the same length for this side like you have for the first side. I will speed up the video again to not bore you with the repetitions. Don't forget that you can slow it down anytime. I know this triangle shape can be created using other techniques too. I've made similar ones with regular peyote triangles myself. But sometimes, it's just so exciting to explore and see what a different technique can bring to the design and how it can be transformed. I love experimenting. Some of the best patterns come to life this way. I made my second side. We can pull off the stopper bead and weave in the tail. At this point, it is not necessary to weave in the end of the thread. It would be enough to cut it off since we did both sides of the shape, so each bead is tied to the one next to it multiple times. But I always weave in the thread out of habit, and I thought why not keep it for the video. Make the inside black line by turning back in the black delica from the end of the second side and stringing black delicas between the black delicas from the increases. One corner of the triangle is done. But we would need our thread for the joining, so we need to lead our thread back on top of one side. You will need about 20 centimeters of thread to connect this corner to the other corner. So leave the thread at least that long. My thread is a lot longer, so I cut off the excess and use it to make the second corner of the triangle. Start the second corner by stringing a stopper bead. Then string the starting line, 1 black, 6 red and 3 black delica beads. You need to make this corner the same like the first. I will make mine off camera to not make the video unnecessarily long. I will be back in a second to show you how to join the 2 corners. I just finished my black line inside of my second corner, and I need to lead my thread back on top of one side. And now let's join the 2 corners. Use the side of the first corner that doesn't have the thread sticking out of it. We will need that thread later. Turn back in the red delica. String 1 black delica. Go through the red delica from the other corner. And turn back in the red delica where you started this circle. Reinforce the circle by going through the beads a couple of times. Turn back in the black delica from the inside of the shape. String 2 black delica beads and go through the black line from the other shape. The first 2 corners are joined. You can weave in this thread and you can cut it. You need to make the last corner just the same like the first 2. I will make mine off camera. But I will be back to show you how to join the last corner. I finished my last corner. And I am exiting on top of one side. I need to join this corner with both sides to the already joined 2 corners. The process of joining is the same like it was for the first 2. Turn back in the red delica on top. String 1 black delica and go through the red delica on the other corner. Finish the circle by going through the red delica on your 3rd corner. Reinforce the circle by going through the beads a couple of times. Turn back in the black delica from the inside of the shape. String 2 black delica beads and go through the black line from the other corner. This join is finished. You can weave in this thread and you can cut it. If you're enjoying this video, I'd love to ask for a small favor that makes a huge difference. Creating these tutorials takes a lot of time, and while I love sharing them for free, I can only keep going with your support. The easiest way to help is to watch my video until the end. Even if it just plays in the background, it tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. A thumbs up, a comment or share also goes a long way, and subscribing is free but incredibly helpful. If you want to go further, you can buy me a coffee or check out my tutorials and jewelry. Links are in the description. But honestly, just watching and engaging already means the world. Thank you so much for helping me keep this channel going. Do you remember the thread that we kept after finishing the first corner? Now it is time to use it for the last joining. I will sped up this joining because it is the same like I showed you with the other corners. The triangle shape is finished. You can weave in the thread and cut it. The next step is to make a bezel for a 14 mm rivoli. String 36 pieces of black delica. I always double count my delicas. If I'm stringing this much, there's a lot of room for error. Bring the beads down on your thread and go through some beads to form a circle with them. Start a peyote row with the delicas. You are exiting from a delica. String 1 black delica and go through the second delica from your circle. Repeat around. When you make a bezel, you use tubular peyote stitch. This stitch is like a spiral. You don't turn back like in the flat peyote, you keep going on circles. But you have an end of the row and you need to keep in mind where it ends. And when you reach the last bead, you need to step up for the next row to start a new row. And to do the step up, you need to go through the last bead from your starting circle and the first bead strung in the new row. Start a new peyote row with size 15 seed beads. Don't forget to step up for the next row. Go through the last delica and the first seed bead for the step up. Start a peyote row with the size 15 seed beads. Over the years I've made countless rivoli bezels. Even a simple bezel can look stunning if the rivoli is flawless and the beadwork is tight enough. Choosing the right beads is key. Uneven beads can lead to an uneven bezel. A well-chosen color combination enhances the beauty of the rivoli, making it stand out even more. Don't forget to step up for the next row. This row will be the last row for the back of the bezel. This will be a decreasing row. String beads in every second gap only. So you string a bead in the first gap, but skip the next gap and string a bead in the third gap. Repeat around. The back of the bezel is finished. Lead your thread to the other side of the bezel to start making the front side. Put the rivoli inside of the bezel. Start the first peyote row with the size 15 seed beads. Don't forget to step up for the next row. Start the last peyote row with the size 15 seed beads. When I said to place the rivoli into the bezel, I forgot to mention, make sure the front side is facing up. My rivoli doesn't have a back since it's black on both sides, but if you're using a regular rivoli, its colored side should be on top. Hopefully this information doesn't come too late. The bezel is finished. You can cut off the tail of the thread. And now we need to make the math for the joining. We need to divide the amount of beads in the bezel by 3. The initial amount of beads in the bezel was 36. So 36 divided with 3 is 12. This means that we need to join the bezel with the triangle every 12th bead. Lead your thread to the first row of delica from the back side of the bezel. We will join the bezel with the triangle using a gap between 2 delicas from that row and the extra black delica used to join 2 corners of the triangle. So step out from a delica from the bezel, go through the delica from the triangle joining and go through the next delica from the bezel. To reinforce this joining you need to make a turn. Go through the delica standing on top of the delica where you are exiting. Then go through the next 2 delicas from the bezel, one in the middle row and one in the front side row, and turn back in the delica where you started the joining. And you are on the good position to reinforce the joining. I told you that you need to join the bezel with the triangle with every 12th bead. But if you look closely at the first joining you see that we used 3 beads for the proper joining. We started from 1, we skipped the second and pulled the bead from the triangle to that spot, and we went through the third to complete the joining. So we should count 12 from the first bead, not the last. So count with that information in your mind and lead your thread to the next joining gap. am at the good spot. I am exiting from the 12th bead and I am on the first delica row from the back side. Now I will make the second joining by going through the black delica from the joining of the corners. All the joinings are made in the same manner as the first one, so I will sped up this part. Don't forget to reinforce the joining. Lead your thread to the last joining gap. And make your last joining. And reinforce it. The pendant is finished. We will need a hanger for it. I made a very simple hanger for this pendant. It is odd count peyote, but because it has only 3 beads is easy to make the turns. To make the hanger you will need to lead your thread to the outside red delica bead from a corner's end. You will need to make turns until you are exiting the bead like you see me exiting now. Your needle is exiting from between the 2 corners end. String 1 black delica and go through the other side red delica. And now you have the 3 beads for the hanger. The 2 red delicas from the outside and 1 black delica from the middle. String red delicas on this row and turn with the second by going through all the beads and starting from the other side. This first row it is a little bit more difficult because it is not flat yet, but the next rows will be easy. This is how I make my turn. I just go through the beads and step out from the red bead from the other side to face the middle of the hanger and have the gap for the black delica. I string the black delica on the middle. This turn is simple and I make the next row with red delicas. I go through the beads to reach the other side. I just repeat this 2 rows until I string 10 black delicas. But you can make your hanger longer if you need. I will sped up the video again, but I will slow it down for the finishing touches of the hanger. There are several ways to create a hanger for this pendant. You can keep it simple with a basic beaded loop, using the gap between the 2 corners. You can also make the one I'm showing here. If you want to take it a step further, you can try a more intricate 3-layered design, like the one I showed in my pagoda triangle pendant tutorial. I'll put a link to that video on the screen and in the description below. I have 10 black delicas, but I would need to make 1 more row to have the red delicas on the last row. And of course I need to make the turn to have my needle exiting from the middle. We need to go through the black delica used for the joinings. So you are exiting from a red delica in your hanger. Go through the black delica and the second red delica from the hanger. Turn back to reinforce this row. And the pendant with the hanger is finished. Last thing you need to do is to weave in the thread and cut it. You need to make at least 3 turnarounds before you cut the thread. I made a lot more turns than that. I used a wire necklace for this pendant, but you can use any type of necklace. You can make the hanger smaller or bigger depending the necklace you want to use. The pendant don't match exactly with the earrings because I don't use bronze color in the pendant. But they look nice together, don't you think? And that's the end of today's video. If you watched it and liked it, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for spending time with me. See you next week.